Hello everyone. Welcome to our weekly broadcast. Here we're discussing everything that has anything to do with search engine optimization and generative engine optimization or answer engine optimization, however you prefer to call it. I think that we have just two acronyms at this point that are making it as winning. So we have a hope at some point we will be able to use just one. I'm the co-founder of Smarty Marketing. I'm Ann Smarty. I have been an SEO for more than 20 years, and I have my agency at this point. And with me today and always, April. She's our director of social as well as the most creative soul in our team. So she will be helping me with some additional questions in case we have time for those, but feel free to ask yours. We should be able to see them from wherever you're watching us from. We are live streaming to my personal LinkedIn at @smarty, to my Twitter SEO Smarty, to our Facebook page Smarty Marketing, and my YouTube and Smarty. I think that I'm not missing anything. So wherever you are watching us from, feel free to ask questions if you have any. Today we have a very interesting topic that also is in the overlap of SEO and GEO. Most of the topics are in the overlap of both. That's why we always discuss them at the same time. Basically, it's not easy to separate at this point. One fuels the other. Search is impacted by AI agents search. So there is too much overlap to kind of separate the two. And today's topic is exactly in the huge overlap. These are LLM citations. And citations are URLs that AI answer is referencing as sources. Different LLM models do it a little bit differently. With ChatGPT, you have to click show sources to see them in the right-hand panel, but they are also cited in the line right inside the answer. Gemini and AI mode, I think, do not cite them in line inside the answer and just in the panel. I will have to double check. It's changing sometimes, but usually there are URLs, especially if they search. LLMs do not search all the time. Gemini almost always provides sources. ChatGPT may just pull the answer from the training data, and that happens a lot, and provide no references. But in most cases, at this point, most LLMs search in most cases. So out of habit, our industry is focusing on optimizing your content to be cited, which is I have no arguments with, because we want to be everywhere, whatever it takes, whether it's AI overview or organic search results. We want our clients' URLs to be everywhere. The more, the better. The only thing here is that all the citations are different. First of all, most LLMs do them differently, like I said. Sometimes they don't have any, sometimes they search other search engines. From the last I know, ChatGPT and Gemini search Google, Perplexity and Claude search Brave search, but there is no official statement about that. So those observations are just observations, but they search regular search to provide those citations. So the first optimization method to be cited is basically rank, which is pure SEO at this point. But this is just half of the battle there, because there are different types of citations and not many people talk about all those types. Officially, there are two types that we know from patents, from official statements. The recent New York Times article is also talking about those two types are grounded and ungrounded. Grounded citations are very clear. This is what we think all LLMs should be doing. They search, they read, and they sync the answer from those pages, and they list them all. Everything that they used for the answer, they are supposed to be citing. Those are pure grounded citations. They impact the answer itself by providing content to LLMs. Now, there are also ungrounded citations, and those I call reverse because the process is absolutely the opposite here. LLMs will pull the answer from their training data and then search Google to find citations that support that answer. Fanouts would also be based on the already existing answer. In this case, those citations do not impact the answer itself. And we don't know the numbers. Again, no LLM has a lot of transparency about that. But the recent New York Times article, as I just said, was about AI overview citations. And somehow they pointed out that 50% of Gemini or AI mode citations are reverse or ungrounded. We don't know where that number is coming from. It was surprising that so many. In my personal understanding, that happens because LLMs are trying to be unbiased, and we know that citations can be biased, and so their answers can be inaccurate or biased unless they use their training data first. That's my assumption. I don't know. They may be also saving time because in these cases, and that has been noted a lot of time, in these cases, they don't necessarily have to go and read the article. They may just cite it. So it's less resourceful than syncing the answer from multiple pages. So they just pick those URLs from searches and they put them without necessarily them reading them or knowing what is inside. That is why there are so many hallucinated URLs being cited. Those are non-existing. ChatGPT is very well known for that. I don't think that it's changing the model, so it may have been almost fixed in the recent one. By the way, today, OpenAI launched a new ChatGPT model, which I didn't have time to play with, but go ahead and play if you want to see if anything has changed. That is why hallucinated URLs exist. That is because they just don't make sure there is a page, and they basically make up citations to save time, resources, electricity. I don't know what they're trying to achieve. Those are ungrounded citations that do not impact the answer itself. And we don't know, again, how many times those citations are clicked from our clients and from data from Ahrefs. They show about 0% of traffic for an average website is driven by LLMs, all kinds, not just ChatGPT. It includes all kinds of LLMs. So a very, very small percentage of clicks at this point is coming from LLMs. So that makes me think that not many of those citations are ever clicked, and that is logical as well. LLM answers are answers. Not most people will be satisfied by that answer. It will not go check sources. Happens a lot with me as well. They are not easy to even find. You have to click to see the sources. So there are many roadblocks to those clicks, to those links being clicked. So when the citation is ungrounded, it's basically, in most cases, useless because there was no impact on the answer. Now, there are also two more unofficial, this is made up terms that companies or myself came up with based on our tests, observations, and all of that. So let's talk about invisible citations. invisible citations are those that were found, used in the answer, but never appeared as the citation. As well, according to, it's very common, by the way, according to Ahrefs data, about half of those retrieved URLs are not cited. Now, again, let's be a little cautious here because we don't really know if ChatGPT or Gemini actually went to the page to read it and use in the answer. So that data may be questionable. But that it is what it is. They say Reddit is one of those uncited sources, but most used source in the training, in the answer itself. So LLMs would pick the thread, read it, give the answer based on that thread, but fail to reference Reddit. Reddit would be the one to tell us if this is really happening based on their server logs. They would be able to see if LLMs definitely visit the page, but never cite it. So we lack the first-hand data here, but this is what's happening. Now, the fourth type of the citation, if you're still with me, is the ghost citation. And the ghost citations are those that are the opposite from invisible citations. This is when a brand is cited, but the actual brand name is not mentioned in the answer. So their content was used for the answer in most cases, but it did not impact the answer itself, so there is no visibility inside the answer. This can happen because those ghost citations were ungrounded. Again, if you're still with me, if those citations were picked after the answer is written, then you will be not able to see any impact on the answer. Or this may be happening because your content fails to mention your own brand or your own product. And so the content was used, but there was no mention of yourself in the answer. In my understanding, and I hope everyone agrees with me, being in the answer is the most important thing because that's what people read and trust, not necessarily click. So when you get cited without the mention of your brand or product inside the answer, this is basically also a loss because who will click that citation that does not is somewhere hidden somewhere behind the answer? So it's also, there is an independent study on ghost citations as well. If we assume that most of them are ungrounded, then it kind of indicates that New York Times data was also correct. The recent data about ghost citations, about 60 of citations are ghost. So they either did not impact the answer or they didn't find the brand name there because there was none mentioned. So it's very close to what New York Times gave us, 50%. The independent study that I found, the recent one, cites 60%. With that in mind, please go and subscribe to nsmarty.com. This is where I cite all those sources that I just mentioned, including Ahrefs study, including New York Times article. So you will be able to click those links and research more and see where the overlap is. So far, all those numbers sound really logical and trustworthy because they kind of support one another. And now we go to the most interesting part here is why do we even need to know all of this? Optimizing for citations is cool unless you have no idea how they work. If they do not impact the answer, being present in the citations has very minimal visibility impact. Well, you maybe get a click or two a month from an LLM just because you optimized for citability. What you need to be optimizing for instead is not so much for citability. It's, well, first for rankings, again, LLM search. Then you need to optimize for brand presence inside the article that you want to be cited and you want to impact the answer. So somehow, in the most non-promotional way, you should be mentioning your brand or your product. Put them in the context. I think that I did quite a few articles and newsletters about how to do that right. That could be citing your original research, for example, or your own data. That could be mentioning in some of the steps how your product can be used to follow your instructions. There are different ways to do that contextually and logically. And this is if an LLM picks that URL, they will be much more likely to include what your own product in the answer or your data, depending on what we are optimizing for here. And finally, the fundamental part of the whole geo is being present in the training data. You can optimize for citability as much as you can, but the ultimate goal, and that also helps, obviously, training data is built on those pages as well. So if you get found and if your content is fed into pre-training data, then you will be much more likely to be present there. So it's, again, optimizing for citations. Many experts claim that as well. When I say it's not the focus or the ultimate goal, they say, well, optimizing for citations also is optimizing for training data. Yes, I agree with that. But training data should be your goal. And this is where I suggest using AI visibility tracking software, because there is no other way to check the training data and your product positioning there, or even your presence in that. Even how LLMs search is often defined by the training data. If you prompt ChatGPT something like best shoes for hiking in raining weather, you will see ChatGPT in the fan outs. They will be using product and brand names and publication names that it already knows and would search for them in Google or whichever search engine it's using. So being in the training data is basically the ultimate and biggest goal than counting how many citations you have and how many clicks you were able to generate from those. And again, as always, also need to mention that traffic is not a signal here. Not many people will click, not many mentions will even be linked inside AI answers. So we don't have much signals from clicks anymore. So focusing or trying different metrics and different scores is something we have to be doing, even though I really don't have the best answers here yet. With that, we can go into your questions. I hope all those categories of citations were not too overwhelming. Again, over at nsmarty.com, you will be able to read it and maybe get a much better picture of what I was talking about.
We have a question from Craig.
Do you think ChatGPT and Gemini or others will start to cite everywhere they get information from? That's very hard to answer. It's a funny, I just published a LinkedIn update. I think it was today or maybe yesterday. Days just fly. About Google engineers talking about AI and integrating AI inside search engine, Google search engine. And they were very clear about they don't know how AI will behave in most cases. This is unpredictable process of them kind of learning and developing on their own. Yes, they have instructions. Yes, they have things, rules that they have to follow, but no one really knows. And I think this is one of those things where you predicting anything is very hard. At this point, citations are very difficult to analyze because there are so many types, and there are no good ways to even know when LLM is citing what. You can search prompt ChatGPT twice a day with the same prompt and get absolutely different citations. So it is interesting to watch for sure. If they are going to cite everything they know, it's not quite possible. They still very much depend on their training data, and training data does not save any sources. There are no URLs inside that knowledge base or map or whatever they have. So when they pull questions from their answers from the training data, yes, all that information had been previously pulled from actual websites. But LLMs, unfortunately, don't know where they pulled which information from. So they will not be physically able to cite everything that they know because they do not store that information. Whether they search and choose to cite something will be changing for sure. How they search, what they pick to cite will be definitely developing, as we see it is developing right now. And I don't think it will ever end developing because LLMs, again, at some point will just change on their own. They are artificial intelligence. They learn, they change, and however it is going to happen and when, we really don't know. But I don't think it is really technically possible that everything will be cited for the answer.
You mentioned in your newsletter that being present in the training data is fundamental. Like, how is that achieved?
That is achieved by good old school marketing. Unfortunately, no shortcuts to the training data. This is doing something memorable and relevant very consistently. Whichever you choose to do will be happening, will be helping your presence. If you, for example, create regular studies, publish them, promote them on Reddit and through outreach or media outreach, you will be associated and you will be remembered as someone having all those studies, and that is much easier for LLMs to remember you when relevant questions are asked. It can be consistent social media presence. It can be consistent Reddit presence. Better when it's everything, but not many businesses can do all of that. So whatever you are doing, you need to be very consistent and relevant about what you do and keep talking about that everywhere, whether it's curating more customer reviews, building community on Reddit, being known as someone publishing something relevant or talking about specific pain points through data, because LLMs love data and they will always remember and cite that as well. So if it's all of that, you will be faster in the training data. Being mentioned next to your competitors, it involves a lot of relationship building with bloggers, journalists, YouTubers, whichever platform is more influential in your specific niche. You need to be there as well. So it is, in most cases at this point, it's Reddit where most conversations are happening about pain points on most topics. But YouTube is also very strong in many industries, especially in Gemini, of course. LinkedIn for B2B industries are very much influential as well. So building your presence, if you are in B2B, on LinkedIn, like authoritative presence, not automation presence, but something becoming a voice that people mention, tag, cite. This is basically the process of becoming remembered by LLMs. And LLMs work exactly as human minds in a way that they have associations. If you think about some industry or some city or some restaurant, like your best food, your memories, experiences, if some brand comes up, you will mention that and recommend it to your friends or someone else. And this is the goal, to be remembered through those associations inside the training data as well. No easy way, but definitely worth on so many levels, because it's not just training data. All those old school proper digital marketing campaigns, they also have so many other benefits, including building your own, like relying on your own community, conversions, brand awareness. All of that grows as well with your training data optimization efforts. So it's very much worth it, but it's a long way to training data for sure, especially for a new brand.
So do we know how like often the training data gets updated?
Training data depends on which LLM we are talking about. I don't think Gemini even tells us that. ChatGPT is usually updating its training data with a new model, but it should be a new model, not .5.6. It should be the new model to update the training data, and unfortunately, that happens about once in 6 months. But it's still not going to be fast, even if you try your best within those 6 months. There is no guarantee you will build a very relevant and clear footprint to be remembered, unfortunately. So it is an ongoing work for sure.
Sorry, should I close my window? A lot of noise.
And rain.
So you also mentioned like in order to show up in citations, like your business needs to be known as like a solution to an underlying problem or an answer. Like, how do you achieve that?
You first of all achieve it through your own website. That is building content that talks about actual problems that you are solving, and that could be done in many ways. Usually I would suggest combining all of that. Keyword research is a great way to find pain points that you are solving. Reddit, I definitely started using Reddit to kind of understand what people are struggling with and why, how the product comes up in there, or the competitor. If you are not as well known enough to be discussed on Reddit, there is always something to learn from how they discuss competitors. So I started using it for my SEO audits as well, to understand which prompts people are likely to put in the ChatGPT, because you don't expect people to ask about specific your product. They start somewhere with their pain point first, and then you should be coming up somewhere else in the conversation. So understanding those generic, like higher level, I won't say generic, but higher level pain points that people can start the conversation and it should lead to you or your product, is a great way to build your own content as well. Talk to your customers, understand them better, what they were searching, how they found you, what they like, what they dislike. Talk to your salespeople, talk to your customer support. Read a lot on social media, like being inside in the context. All of that gives you a lot of data for building your own content. And that is the first step, because your website is going to be part of the training data. If not now, then next time it updates. Also, just curating detailed user-generated content, reviews, their experience, which problems they solved using your product, what they needed to be added, and how you solve their issues. Curating all those details. It could be case studies, it could be reviews, it could be Reddit, mentions on Reddit. It can be anything and everything, as long as it's authentic and done well. It's going to be part of that problem solving training data that will be helping you to be surfaced in answers. So it's a lot of things to do, but it's also the right things to do. If there is one good thing about GEO, is that it is pushing us to do the right things, as long as you avoid all the noise, because there are so many GEO experts that claim playbooks, shortcuts, anything, like they figure out the algorithm and they know exactly what you need to do. In a week you will be you will be in the answer, in all the answers, as long as you like just neglect all of that noise and focus on the right things. Geo is a very good thing that is pushing us in the right direction for sure. With that, thank you so much. Again, subscribe and smarty.com. This is where I'm going to invite you to this live broadcast. Also, I'm announcing our Reddit MAAs. By the way, we do have a new MAA going scheduled for this week. If I don't search SEO ranking has been my favorite SEO tool for as long as I can remember. And they're hosting an MAA inside our subreddit. Please check it out. SEO for AI. Ask your questions, ask follow-up questions, add your feedback, add your learn. Let's learn together and keep track of everything that's going on. And come here every Wednesday, 1 p.m. EST. This is where we discuss the topic of the week. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, April, for your great
Bye, everyone.